I'm going to title this video something similar to, has Eddie Hearn publicly offering Carl Frampton, publicly calling Carl Frampton out in the manner he did, massively backfired on Scott Quigg? It is possible that that is the case. First and foremost, the Frampton fight looks further away than ever from actually happening. I did a video on this at the time, and as I suggested, and I know it wasn't an overly bold suggestion from me, so I'm not looking for credit for picking that right, but as I was suggesting at the time, I think that such confrontational business tactics can make a business deal further away rather than bringing it closer. Now, when we talk about these lower weight classes, the kind of weight limits where Scott Quigg campaigns, there isn't a huge public interest. There isn't the purses associated with the fights due to, I guess, the public not being as interested as a big domestic heavyweight class, for example. So when you start mentioning £1.5 million purses in one of those kind of divisions, people on a global footing take notice. Especially when your fighter has at times looked somewhat unspectacular. You know, let's not forget Scott Quigg dropping a jaw to Salinas, I believe his name was, and on other occasions as well. You know, he just hasn't looked like a world beater. If I was managing a hot prospect, maybe you would keep him away from Carl Frampton. Maybe you'd be less scared of Scott Quigg. He doesn't seem to be as... He seems to be easier to hit. He seems to be less dynamic. He doesn't seem to have the same punching power. Yeah, I'd be less scared of Scott Quigg if I was managing someone. And now he's made that £1.5 million offer, he's become a marked man. Some of the bigger names in the division, Guillermo Rigondeaux, Nonito Donaire, have publicly called Scott Quigg out. I think that this £1.5 million figure has raised his profile in the division, has made people want to fight him. You know, has put a cross against his back. You know, it's crazy. I heard that Rigondeaux's team are actively lobbying the WBA. I think Quigg is the regular champion, Rigondeaux is the super champion. They're lobbying the WBA to mandate that fight. You know, apparently Rigondeaux's going to fly over to publicly score Scott Quigg out. And the difficulty is, Scott Quigg has been in a very low calibre of fight in the UK. You know, the opposition he's been against has been very, very weak. What I'm wondering is, has he been protected in order to make Quigg Frampton? Has he kept his zero? Because Eddie Hearn has been very, very mindful that any loss on his record might push the Quigg Frampton fight away. Now what's happened is the Quigg Frampton fight is further away than ever. Scott Quigg is being considered the money man in the division, and you've got guys like Rigondeaux who would probably destroy Scott Quigg, publicly calling Scott Quigg out. And the difficulty for Eddie Hearn, Team Quigg, is, are the British public going to accept further C-level, D-level Scott Quigg fights against unheard of opponents if you've got guys like Guillermo Rigondeaux flying in to call your guy out, you know, saying they'll fight him for the money? It's going to be very, very difficult for Eddie Hearn to sell that. I think he's created a rod for his own back. Yeah, he's made the Frampton fight further away, and he's put himself in a position. Yeah, maybe his intention was that the public would go easy on Scott Quigg. How can we say Scott Quigg isn't in a fight? He's clearly trying to make the fights. Look, he offered Frampton £1.5 million. Maybe that was his intention. Positive PR. Make his fighter in a situation where you can't call him out for weak opposition. Team Hearn, Team Quigg are trying to get the better opposition in. But actually, he's going to be in a situation where I would suggest they'll probably avoid Rigondeaux. In fact, early articles I've read even suggest that Hearn has said he's going to try and avoid Rigondeaux. He doesn't see Rigondeaux as a big enough name and a big enough draw and blah, blah, blah. But I, for one, will be posting a video complaining if Quigg fights some fighter from a random country who I've never heard of, who's never fought an opponent I've ever heard of. When you've got a guy like Rigondeaux flying into call him out. If Tim and Quigg are that confident, fight Rigondeaux. I'm sure if you beat Rigondeaux, Frampton will fight you. I think he's created a rod for his own back. He's pushed Frampton deal further away, and he's made his man a target for all of the division. Surely now we will no longer accept the sea-level Scott Quigg fights that we have been subjected to time and time again. Let me know your thoughts. I'm interested to discuss. I don't necessarily, just last thing I'll say, I don't necessarily put this video up as a criticism of Scott Quigg. It's more a discussion point about the way Eddie Hearn's gone about business here. And it's something that had I been Eddie Hearn, I wouldn't have done. He's a successful businessman. I'm sitting here in a one-bedroom flat making a video on YouTube that may get 100 hits if I'm lucky. So one of us has got the right idea, but I disagree with him here. Let me know your thoughts.